The last person Ethan Sterling expected to see standing in the rain outside his old high school was Tessa Brooks, soaking wet and fumbling with a broken umbrella like she had been doing this dance with bad weather her entire life. He had been driving past on impulse, taking the scenic route home from a business meeting that had ended early, when he spotted her through the downpour. His heart stopped the way it had 10 years ago when she had walked away from him, telling him she needed to find herself before they could build a life together. Ethan pulled his black sedan to the curb and rolled down the window. "Need a ride?" Tessa turned, her dark hair plastered to her face and her green eyes went wide with recognition. For a moment neither of them spoke. The rain drummed against the roof of his car, filling the silence with its relentless rhythm. "Ethan." Her voice was softer than he remembered, but it still had that quality that had always made him feel like he was the only person in the world. "Get in before you catch pneumonia," he said, pushing open the passenger door. She hesitated for only a second before climbing in, bringing with her the scent of rain and something floral he could not quite place. She set her broken umbrella on the floor and buckled her seatbelt, stealing glances at him as if she was trying to reconcile the man he had become with the boy she had known. "What are you doing here?" she asked, rubbing her arms to warm herself. "I could ask you the same thing." He reached into the back seat and grabbed a jacket, handing it to her. "It's dry at least." "Thanks." She wrapped it around her shoulders. "I teach here now, English literature. My car would not start and I was waiting for a tow truck." "You teach?" The information settled over him like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Of course she did. She had always loved books, always talked about wanting to inspire kids the way her favorite teacher had inspired her. 3 years now. What about you? "Last I heard, you were working at your dad's construction company." Ethan pulled back onto the road, heading in the direction of what used to be her parents' house. "I did for a while. Then I started my own development firm. We build eco-friendly residential communities." "Your own firm?" "That's incredible, Ethan," he shrugged, though the praise from her meant more than he wanted to admit. "It's been a lot of work, but it's paid off. We just finished a project that's getting some national attention." The truth was more complicated than that. His company had exploded over the past 5 years, making him wealthier than he had ever imagined possible. He owned properties in 3 states, had investments that generated passive income while he slept, and had recently been featured in a business magazine as one of the most successful entrepreneurs under 40. But sitting next to Tessa, none of that seemed to matter. "Where am I taking you?" he asked. "Oh, I moved. I have an apartment on Maple Street now, number 42. He knew the building. It was modest but well-maintained, the kind of place a teacher could afford on her salary. He drove in silence for a while, hyper-aware of her presence beside him. She had changed in small ways. Her face had lost some of its youthful roundness, replaced by elegant angles that made her even more beautiful. But her eyes were the same, full of warmth and intelligence. "I can't believe it's been 10 years, Tessa said quietly. 10 years and 4 months. The words were out before he could stop them. She looked at him, surprise flickering across her features. "You remember?" "I remember everything, Tessa." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. He remembered the way she had cried when she told him goodbye. Remembered the feeling of his world crumbling as she explained that she loved him but was not ready, that she needed to figure out who she was before she could be part of a couple. He remembered watching her leave for college out of state, remembered the calls that gradually became less frequent, the texts that eventually stopped altogether. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt you, I know." And he did. It had taken him years to understand that she had not left because she did not love him, but because she loved him enough to want to be whole before they built something together. That understanding had not made it hurt less, but it had helped him move forward. He pulled up in front of her building and put the car in park. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but neither of them moved to get out. "Do you want to come up for coffee?" Tessa asked. "It's the least I can do after you rescued me." Every rational part of his brain told him to decline, to protect the heart he had spent a decade learning to guard. But when he looked at her, really looked at her, he saw something in her eyes that made him throw caution aside. "Yeah," he said, "I'd like that." Her apartment was small but cozy, filled with books and plants that gave it life. Photographs lined the walls, capturing moments from what he assumed was her life over the past 10 years. He studied them while she disappeared into her bedroom to change into dry clothes. "You can sit," she called out. "I'll just be a minute." Ethan settled onto her couch, a comfortable piece covered in a soft throw blanket. A stack of student essays sat on the coffee table, red pen marks covering the top page. This was her life, he realized, small and simple and entirely her own. She emerged wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She looked younger like this, more like the girl he had fallen in love with in high school. "I don't actually have coffee," she admitted with a sheepish smile, "but I have tea, hot chocolate, or wine." "Wine sounds good." She poured them each a glass of red and sat beside him on the couch, closer than necessary but not quite touching. The proximity made his pulse quicken. "So," she said, taking a sip, "tell me about your life. Are you married? Kids?" "No and no." "I dated here and there, but nothing serious." He did not add that no one had ever measured up to her, that every relationship had felt like a pale imitation of what they had shared. "What about you?" "Same. I was engaged once, about 3 years ago, but it didn't work out." Something dark twisted in his chest at the thought of her engaged to someone else. "What happened?" "I realized I was settling." She met his eyes. "He was a good man, but I didn't love him the way I should have. It wouldn't have been fair to either of us to go through with it." "That must have been hard." It was, but it was the right decision. She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "Can I ask you something? Anything? Do you ever think about us, about what we had?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He set down his glass and turned to face her fully. "Every day for the first 3 years. After that, it became every week, then every month. But yeah, Tessa, I think about us." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I made a mistake, Ethan. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. You needed to go, I understand that now. But I should have come back. I should have called, should have told you that I never stopped loving you." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I was scared. Scared that you had moved on, that too much time had passed, that I had ruined the best thing that ever happened to me." He reached out and wiped the tear away with his thumb, his hand lingering on her cheek. "I never moved on, not really. Ethan." His name was a prayer on her lips. He closed the distance between them, his mouth finding hers in a kiss that felt like coming home. She responded immediately, her hands tangling in his hair as a decade of longing poured out of both of them. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "I can't believe you're here," she whispered against his lips. "I'm here." He kissed her again, softer this time, "and I'm not going anywhere." They spent the rest of the evening talking, filling in the gaps of the years they had spent apart. She told him about her struggles in college, how she had questioned her major 3 times before settling on education, how she had lived in 2 different states before moving back home because she missed the familiar streets and faces. He told her about building his business from the ground up, the long nights and hard decisions, the satisfaction of creating something meaningful. "I always knew you'd do something amazing," Tessa said, her head resting on his shoulder as they lounged on the couch. "Even in high school, you had this drive that was impossible to ignore." "I learned it from watching you," he admitted. "The way you threw yourself into everything you cared about, you inspired me more than you know." She tilted her head up to look at him. "Stay tonight, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He stayed, and it felt natural in a way that nothing had felt natural in years. They fell asleep tangled together, and when Ethan woke in the morning with Tessa in his arms, he felt a sense of peace he had not experienced since she left. Over the following weeks, they slipped back into each other's lives as if the 10-year gap had been nothing more than a long pause. Ethan found himself leaving work early to pick her up from school, enjoying the way her students would gawk at his car. Tessa cooked him dinner on weekends, laughing when he admitted he had been living mostly on takeout and protein shakes. "You're a millionaire and you eat like a college student," she teased, stirring pasta sauce on her small stove. "I never had anyone to cook for me," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind, "or anyone I wanted to cook for." She turned in his embrace, her expression softening. "Well, you have someone now, but it was not all easy." One evening, about a month into their renewed relationship, Tessa grew quiet over dinner at an upscale restaurant Ethan had chosen. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his fork. "This place is really expensive, Ethan. So I can afford it. I know you can, that's kind of the problem." She fidgeted with her napkin. "Your life is so different from mine. You have this incredible career, all this money. I'm just a teacher." "Just a teacher." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Tessa, you're shaping young minds every day. That's more important than anything I do." "But I can't afford places like this. I can't keep up with your lifestyle." "I don't care about that. I care about you." He squeezed her hand. "If fancy restaurants make you uncomfortable, we will go to that diner you love. If you want to spend Saturday nights grading papers while I read beside you, that's perfect. I don't need expensive things, Tessa. I just need you. Promise?" "I promise. You're not just anyone to me. You're the one who got away, and now that I have you back, I'm not letting money or status or anything else come between us." She smiled, though he could see the worry still lingering in her eyes. "Okay." He decided then that he needed to show her he meant it. The next weekend, he traded his luxury sedan for a rental truck and helped her students' families move furniture for a charity drive the school was organizing. He showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, his sleeves rolled up, working alongside people who had no idea he could have written a check for everything they were moving. Tessa watched him carry a couch up 3 flights of stairs with another volunteer, her expression unreadable. When he finished, sweaty and grinning, she handed him a bottle of water. "You're full of surprises," she said. "I told you, this is who I am. The money doesn't define me." She kissed him then, right there in front of everyone, and he heard one of her students whistle. When she pulled back, she was blushing but smiling. "I love you," she said. "I never stopped." "I love you too, always have." Things shifted after that. Tessa relaxed into their relationship, stopped worrying so much about their different tax brackets, and started just enjoying being together. They fell into routines that felt both new and familiar. Sunday morning farmers' markets, Wednesday evening walks in the park, Friday nights at her place with takeout and old movies, but Ethan wanted more. He wanted to wake up next to her every morning, wanted to build a life with her that encompassed everything they had lost and everything they could still become. 3 months after their reunion, he brought up the subject while they were lying in bed at his penthouse apartment, which she had finally agreed to visit. "Move in with me," he said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. She propped herself up on her elbow to look at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I know it's fast, but Tessa, we've already lost 10 years. I don't want to waste any more time. This place is incredible, but it's so far from the school. So we will find somewhere closer, or I will drive you every morning. I don't care where we live as long as we're together." She bit her lip, clearly torn. "What if we mess this up? What if we move too fast and ruin everything? What if we don't and we miss out on something amazing?" He cupped her face. "I understand if you need time. But I need you to know that I'm all in. This isn't just nostalgia or trying to recapture what we had. This is about building something new with you. Can I think about it?" "Of course." She gave him her answer a week later, showing up at his office with a key in her hand. His assistant had tried to stop her, but Tessa had walked right past her and into his corner office where he was in the middle of a conference call. He held up a finger, mouthing 1 minute, but she shook her head. "This can't wait," she said. He made quick apologies to the people on the call and hung up. "Tessa, what are you doing here?" "Yes." "Yes, what?" "Yes, I'll move in with you. Yes, I want to build a life together. Yes to all of it." She crossed the room and handed him the key. "This is to my apartment." I'm not renewing my lease. He stood, taking the key and pulling her into his arms. You're sure? Terrified but sure, you're right. We've already lost too much time. He kissed her, pouring every ounce of love and relief into it. His assistant knocked tentatively on the door. Mr. Sterling. Your 2 o'clock is here. Cancel it, he said without breaking eye contact with Tessa. Cancel everything for today. But sir, everything. I'm taking the afternoon off. They spent the rest of the day looking at houses, something between his penthouse and her tiny apartment. They found a craftsman-style home in a quiet neighborhood halfway between his office and her school. It had a big backyard, a reading nook that made Tessa gasp with delight, and an office where Ethan could work from home. It's perfect, she breathed, standing in the kitchen and looking out at the garden. Make an offer, Ethan told his real estate agent. Don't you want to see other properties first? No, this is the one. They closed on the house within a month, and moving in together was chaotic and wonderful. Tessa insisted on keeping her mismatched furniture alongside his expensive pieces, creating an eclectic mix that somehow worked. She filled the shelves with her books, and he set up his home office. They argued good-naturedly about paint colors and where to hang pictures, and every disagreement ended in laughter or kisses. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Ethan found himself less consumed by work, more interested in rushing home to see what Tessa was cooking or to hear about her day. She graded papers at the kitchen table while he worked on his laptop, their legs tangled together under the table. They hosted dinner parties for her teacher friends and his business associates, two worlds blending in unexpected harmony. 6 months after moving in together, Ethan's company landed its biggest project yet, a massive eco-village that would set the standard for sustainable living. The contract was worth millions, and celebration was mandatory. His business partner threw a party at an exclusive downtown venue, and Ethan brought Tessa as his date. She looked stunning in a simple black dress, her hair swept up elegantly. But he could tell she was nervous, surrounded by people who moved in circles she was not used to. You okay? He whispered as they entered the party, just a little overwhelmed. Stick with me. We will make the rounds and then we can leave. But the evening took an unexpected turn when James Holloway, a rival developer who had been trying to steal Ethan's clients for years, cornered them by the bar. Sterling, he said with a fake smile. Congratulations on the Riverside project, though I have to say I'm surprised. I didn't think you had the capital to pull off something that ambitious. Clearly, you underestimated me, clearly. James's eyes slid to Tessa. And who is this lovely creature? Tessa Brooks. I'm Ethan's girlfriend, a girlfriend, how quaint. James sipped his drink. What do you do, Tessa? I'm a high school English teacher. James's eyebrows rose. A teacher, well, that's certainly humble. The condescension in his tone was unmistakable. Ethan felt Tessa stiffen beside him. Before he could say anything, she spoke up, her voice calm but firm. Yes, it is. I make a modest salary helping teenagers learn to think critically and express themselves. It might not be as flashy as real estate development, but I sleep well at night knowing I'm making a difference in people's lives. James's smile faltered. And for the record, Tessa continued, Ethan's success has nothing to do with capital and everything to do with integrity and vision. 2 things you might want to look into. Ethan could not help the grin that spread across his face. James muttered something about needing to speak to someone else and hurried away. Did I just make an enemy for you? Tessa asked once he was gone. You just made me fall even more in love with you. He pulled her close. That was incredible. He was being a jerk. Someone had to say something. You defended me. Of course I did. You're mine to defend. The possessiveness in her voice sent a thrill through him. Let's get out of here. But your party can continue without us. I'd rather be home with you. They left the party early, and on the drive home, Ethan made a decision. He had been planning to wait to make sure the timing was perfect, but sitting beside Tessa, watching the streetlights play across her face, he realized there would never be a more perfect moment than this. I need to stop somewhere, he said, taking a detour. Where? You'll see. He pulled up in front of their old high school, the place where they had first met, where he had first kissed her under the bleachers after a football game, where she had told him she loved him for the first time. "Ethan, what are we doing here?" He parked and turned to her. "This is where it all started, where I first realized that you were different from every other person I had ever met, where I fell in love with you." "I remember," she said softly. "When you left, I thought my life was over. I threw myself into work because it was the only thing that didn't hurt. I built an empire, made more money than I knew what to do with, and none of it mattered because you weren't there to share it with." He took her hand. "Then I saw you standing in the rain, and it was like the missing piece of my life just clicked back into place." "Ethan, I know we said we were taking things one day at a time, but Tessa, I don't want one day at a time anymore. I want forever." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I want you to marry me." Her hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I'm not asking you to marry me because I'm trying to recreate what we had 10 years ago. I'm asking because I want to create something new with you. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to support your dreams and have you support mine. I want to build a family with you. Tessa Brooks, will you marry me?" "Yes," she sobbed. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and she launched herself at him, kissing him with a passion that made his head spin. When they finally broke apart, they were both laughing and crying. "I love you so much," she whispered. "I love you too. Always have, always will." They sat in the car outside their old high school for hours, talking about their future. She wanted a small wedding, just family and close friends. He wanted to take her on a honeymoon to Italy where they could eat pasta and explore ancient ruins. She wanted kids eventually, maybe 2. He wanted whatever made her happy. The wedding took place 6 months later in the backyard of their home, under a canopy of string lights and surrounded by flowers from Tessa's garden. Her parents cried, his mother gave a touching speech about second chances, and when Ethan slipped the wedding band onto Tessa's finger, he felt like the luckiest man alive. "I never thought I'd find my way back to you," Tessa whispered during their first dance. "Some people are just meant to be," he said. "We took the long way around, but we made it." Their honeymoon in Italy was everything they had dreamed. They explored Florence and Rome, ate their weight in gelato, and made love in a villa overlooking the Tuscan countryside. Tessa laughed more than he had ever heard her laugh, and Ethan felt years of loneliness and heartache melt away under the Italian sun. When they returned home, life continued its beautiful rhythm, but now with the solid foundation of marriage beneath them. Tessa continued teaching, and Ethan continued building, but they made sure to prioritize each other above all else. Date nights were sacred, vacations were non-negotiable, and every night they fell asleep in each other's arms, grateful for the second chance they had been given. A year into their marriage, Tessa started feeling tired all the time. At first, she blamed it on the stress of the school year, but when the fatigue persisted, Ethan insisted she see a doctor. The appointment was on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan left a meeting early to go with her, ignoring his assistant's protests about his packed schedule. He held Tessa's hand in the waiting room, trying to mask his own worry. When the doctor called them back, Tessa squeezed his hand so hard it hurt. The doctor ran through some basic questions before delivering news that made them both freeze. "Mrs. Sterling, you're pregnant." Silence. Then Tessa burst into tears and Ethan felt his own eyes water. "Are you serious?" he managed to ask. "Very serious. About 8 weeks along by my estimate." "Congratulations." They left the doctor's office in a daze, and it was not until they were sitting in the car that the reality truly hit them. "We're having a baby," Tessa said, staring at the sonogram picture the doctor had given them. "We're having a baby," Ethan repeated, a smile spreading across his face. "Holy shit, we're having a baby," she laughed, the sound watery but joyful. "Are you happy?" "Happy? Tessa, I'm over the moon. Are you?" Terrified and thrilled and so happy. She looked at him with shining eyes. "We're going to be parents," He leaned over and kissed her, gentle and reverent. "You're going to be an amazing mother, and you're going to be an amazing father." The pregnancy was not easy. Tessa dealt with morning sickness that lasted all day, and there were moments when Ethan felt helpless watching her suffer. But he was there for every appointment, every midnight craving, every moment of panic and joy. He converted the spare bedroom into a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and assembling furniture with an attention to detail that made Tessa cry happy tears. "Hormones," she said, wiping her eyes as she watched him hang immobile over the crib. "It's okay to cry. This is emotional for both of us." When Tessa went into labor on a rainy Tuesday evening, Ethan drove to the hospital with his heart in his throat. He stayed by her side through every contraction, letting her squeeze his hand until he lost feeling in his fingers, whispering encouragements, and telling her how strong she was. And when their daughter finally entered the world, tiny and perfect and screaming at the top of her lungs, Ethan felt a love so overwhelming it nearly brought him to his knees. "She's beautiful," Tessa sobbed, cradling their daughter against her chest. "She looks like you," Ethan said, smoothing the baby's dark hair. "She has your eyes." They named her Emma, and she became the center of their universe. Ethan took paternity leave, something his business partner thought was crazy, but he did not care. He was not going to miss these early days with his daughter. He learned to change diapers and give baths, to soothe Emma when she cried and to recognize her different sounds. Tessa watched him with adoration, and more than once told him that seeing him as a father made her fall in love with him all over again. When Tessa's maternity leave ended, it was harder than either of them expected. She cried the night before her first day back, holding Emma close. "I don't know if I can do this," she said. "You can, and I'll be here. I'm working from home for the foreseeable future. You're really going to give up going to the office for this, for you and Emma, in a heartbeat." He kept his word. He set up video conferences, delegated more responsibility to his team, and structured his days around Emma's schedule. When Tessa came home from teaching, she would find him with Emma strapped to his chest, working on his laptop or taking calls while their daughter slept against him. "You're going to spoil her," Tessa would say, but she was always smiling when she said it. "Good. That's my job." Emma grew from an infant into a toddler who had her mother's curiosity and her father's determination. She took her first steps in the backyard while both her parents cheered. She said Dada first, and Ethan did not gloat too much when Tessa pretended to pout. Their home filled with toys and laughter, and date nights evolved into family outings to the zoo and the park. On their 5th wedding anniversary, after putting Emma to bed, Ethan and Tessa sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, watching the sunset. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Tessa asked, leaning against him. "All the time. If I hadn't driven past the school that day, if you hadn't been standing in the rain, we might never have found our way back to each other. I like to think we would have. Somehow, some way, fate, something like that." She tilted her head up to kiss his jaw. "Thank you for not giving up on us, even when I gave up on us. You never gave up, you just took a detour." He wrapped his arm around her, "and look where we ended up. Here, with everything we ever wanted, and more than I ever dreamed." Inside, Emma called out for water and they both smiled. Ethan stood, pulling Tessa up with him. "Come on, Mom, duty calls." "Right behind you, Dad." They walked into the house together, hands intertwined, ready to face whatever came next. Because they had learned the hard way that life was unpredictable, that love was not always linear, and that sometimes the best things came to those who were patient enough to wait and brave enough to try again. Ethan had built an empire, but his greatest achievement would always be the family he had built with Tessa. The girl who had walked away to find herself had come back as a woman who knew exactly what she wanted. And what she wanted was him, the same way he had always wanted her. Years from now, when Emma asked about how they met, they would tell her about high school sweethearts who loved each other too much to hold on and just enough to let go. They would tell her about rain and broken umbrellas and second chances that felt like coming home. They would tell her that love was not always easy, but it was always worth fighting for. And on quiet nights, after Emma was asleep and the house was peaceful, Ethan would hold Tessa close and remember the moment he saw her standing in the rain. The moment everything changed. The moment his ex became his future, and his past became a bridge to something beautiful. Because some loves were just meant to last forever, even if they took the scenic route to get there.